Well, it's another hot, hot day today, but I thought that I would go over a few things and give you a bit of a rundown on what I've already covered and show you a few things just to remind you of what you might need to collect together. So first of all, you'll need some plaster of Paris moulds, and there are many mould companies that make moulds for bodies, and they range from huge ones to tiny ones, and there are many people with moulds that are getting rid of them, so you just might find some of the ones that you're looking for. And there are mould numbers, and they can be found, and if you're really short of numbers, I have a lot of old catalogues and I have numbers that you can message me about what might fit them. And my catalogue actually has all the heads and what fits each head up, because I've recorded it and put it into a digital format. So it is important to know what you're going to actually make with it, because when you pour Li-Qua-Che, it's actually a size between a bisque mould or a bisque body that you might be making, and the Li-Qua-Che is kind of a size up in between. So if you pour something in Li-Qua-Che, it is not going to shrink. However, if you add a whole lot of water to your mixture, it is going to shrink smaller than something you don't add a lot of water to. But I have found in general that it's the size in between. And when I get to doing that part, I'm going to set all the bodies out so you can actually see the difference between the ones that are bisque and the ones that are Li-Qua-Che, and what might fit that particular one. So the Li-Qua-Che, you're going to add about 1/3 of water to. Now, I got this sieve which has actually got quite big holes through it. If you try to use a really fine sieve, the actual grain of the Li-Qua-Che doesn't go through it very well. So you need to have a sieve, probably an old baking sieve like this one, that you can put the Li-Qua-Che through to make sure there are no lumps. And if you're going to do the whole bucket, which I suggest when you first open it you do that, because you want all the ingredients actually mixed up properly. You don't want some things on the bottom and some things on the top. You want all those chemicals evenly distributed. And then when you've mixed it in a big bucket, and I use the slotted spoon to do that, and you've got it reasonably smooth, then you can put it into here and sieve what you're going to need. And as I explained the other day, where is it gone? This jug, which is a soap making jug, is absolutely fantastic, and I wish I'd had it a long time ago, because that for pouring moulds is amazing. And I suggest you have several different size jugs for different size bodies, and I know you can get a smaller one than this one, so probably that would do for really small dolls. And this is what I needed the other day and I could not find it, and there it was sitting on the bench all the time, but because it was clear I couldn't see it, and I don't have lighting in my shed out there. I have to go and plug it in and go through all that rigmarole. So if you have a straw and you start blowing it up into the mould to clear it, you could end up with it all on your face or in your mouth. But if you've got a long tube, and I usually use about half that, say something like that, you can aim that up into it and blow quite easily. So that is important. So that's another tool that you need. You need a spatula, and just an ordinary baking spatula, getting it off the sides and things like that, and a fettling knife, like that. And that is my original fettling knife that I bought in 1981 from Eileen Carroll's shop, and it has done many, many, many moulds. And I was very upset the other day because I couldn't find it. I have another one, but that is my favourite. So that takes me to, I'll just go on to this, because if you're buying Li-Qua-Che, it comes from Canada, from activaproducts.com, and they make art supplies, quite a few for children I think, but they have school and camp projects, sculpting, hobby or set props, architectural models, home decor, general crafts, ornaments and jewellery making. And I discovered something about the Li-Qua-Che that I think is really important. It is a polymer paper mache, and if you try to set hooks into it with something like an epoxy 2-part resin or putty or whatever, it may not be compatible with the Li-Qua-Che. And what I discovered is when a lady pulled the arm, it found the weakest point and it ripped the side of the body out. So it is really important that you use the product that they make, which is Fastmache, and I'll explain to you as you go along what to do with that. Now I've got another tin over here, this red tin, which is just an old cake tin, and I take it out of this packet and I put it into a cake tin because it is very, very dusty and not very nice. It goes up your nose and it's really bad, and I think it probably has got some plaster in it. It says it's a finely ground mache similar to its companion Li-Qua-Che, and it's ready to use right out of the box, just add water. So I have found that the Fastmache, I do paints with it, I set the hooks with it, I mend things with it. Fabulous product, and you will need that if you've got the Li-Qua-Che. But that's not the end of setting the hooks. There's quite a bit more to it than that. But you do need those two products, because if you try to use something else, you'll probably find that it just pulls out and it doesn't work. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about are these pieces that I poured the other day. And you can see that I've got a hole in there, and the hands got a hole in there, and I've cut some slots there. The slots have been cut with the sharp scalpel, and then comes the awl, which is very important. Now I've got a few others out there, but some of them are a lot bigger than what we want. This one I've had since about 1981, so that's done a few holes, but that's a proper pottery one, and it's a really good size. That's a fantastic tool. And then I found these other people that had other sets where they came in a set, and there's some smaller ones than this one that I had, and that's useful as well. So then it comes to the bodies, and you need to be able to drill a hole or cut a hole through there, or through here. This one's got to be cleaned out of it, but it has to be cut through there, and through where you're going to have the neck hole. And this needs to be quite thick, because if you don't make that thick, then it's going to collapse. So because I liken it to a bridge, You don't build a bridge just straight across a gap. You have to think, how much is it going to support? How am I going to get it from A to B? And what materials am I going to use? And when you take all those factors, then you design something that is going to cope with that. So with the Li-Qua-Che Bodies, I spent about 3 years finding ways of how I could stop this thing from imploding, because I felt I couldn't sell it. So there are some awls, and I've got a couple of sets coming that I wanted to show you, the new sets, because these ones I've used quite a bit, and I'd left that in some water and it had gone a bit rusty, but it's actually quite good. Now there are two sorts of awls. That one there is just a brass tube with a piece cut out of it, and it's not very good. I had a whole set of those that I bought, and they work, but they're not as easy to use as one with that piece like that cut across on it, because you can stick that in and just turn it and pull the piece out, and the wet Li-Qua-Che goes into here, and then you can hook that out and clean it out. So that's very important. So when the new ones come, I'll show you that in detail. You also need a couple of brushes, and some of your old brushes that are those nice firm type brushes, even like the hogwash brushes that you used to use at school, or a flat one like this that's reasonably stiff, is good for cleaning the sides. And we didn't really get into cleaning because I haven't got to that bit yet, but it is possible to dampen the side of this, and that will make it easy to clean. So you don't need to wet the whole thing, but you can have something damp like a brush or whatever, and just go along it and add a little bit of water, and it'll make it easier to clean. So I take off all the rough stuff first, but that's how I do it. Okay, so those are the awls, and it is important to do this and to get them right in the middle, because if you get them over to one side, then when you go to string it, that is not going to be even. It has to be absolutely symmetrical. So that is really, really important. The other thing to have are microfiber cloths, because the microfiber will take off lots of the dust, and as you clean it, you can polish the body up with one of these cloths, and it will polish it up nicely, ready to be painted with gesso. So let me see. Oh, and the rasp, that also can be used to clean that off. I'll just do a little bit. As I said yesterday, I'm waiting for a decent mask. I'll just show you this little bit. Now, this isn't as old as the other pieces. This piece would have been poured about 6 weeks ago, I suppose. But I often go over the body like that. You can see, it's just fantastic. And it might make a few groovy bits, but you can clean that off with other sandpaper. So that is the story of the foot rasp. And I discovered it by accident, because I bought this thing, and you know how you get feet in the summer that are all dry and horrible, and I had it there, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, my, that looks like a good little file, I could use that. And so it really, really works. So that goes in there. And the scalpels you can use just as you would on greenware, cutting things away. But once you've got the basic shapes done, then, for instance, this one here, I know you couldn't see properly yesterday, so the roundy one, you can just go like that. And then if this was wet, you can just clean this back. Now this brush is a little bit soft, but I've got some others that have got more polyester in them and a bit firmer than this. And they, even those tips brushes, but I think they're probably not going to be strong enough. Needs to be something like a flat hogwash brush. And this just needs to be taken out a bit more. Didn't cut it through properly. And just take that out like that. And clear anything out that is going to block inside. So if when you've poured it there's a great big hunk of something that didn't drain out properly, it's going to block up the end like this here. So you can just take that round. And I'm just going to stick this all in here. Now this was done last night and it may just be too set. I'll just use a slightly smaller one, my old faithful. And you need to make sure that that hole is going right down and that when you look through there you can see fresh air. Now that is the little roundy one. And then comes your straight-sided one, which you can then just take a bit more off. I mean, if you're really pedantic, you can measure these, but I find I just do it by eye, really. And you don't want this part up here, where it's going to go into the elbow, to be really paper thin, because it's going to have quite a bit of pressure with this elbow joint on this particular one. There we go. And then you can get your little brush out and you can just clean up around there. And if you do this before it's kind of really set, it's going to save you an awful lot of work later, because later it goes hard and then you've got to get out your Dremel. As I said, it's really dusty and goes quite hard, and it's really hard work to get all of that cleaned up. So you can do an awful lot at this point. Just clean it up around there with your scalpel. And don't go digging into it, because if you do, you'll damage the edges. But if you did put a ding, like yesterday I dropped this body of that thing and I took a little chip out of it. But I can put some more of the Li-Qua-Che into there and just rebuild that. So it's not really a problem. Now all the stuff that's come off, actually I might do that one here in front of you. It's only a little bit of wood, so it won't hurt. If I just add a little drop or two of water there, you can just reconstitute that back to Li-Qua-Che and dust. And I might have a wee bit on here that I can scrape away. Now that's been set for quite a while, so you can see it still can have water added to it. And that piece that's there that I chipped, I can just put some more into it, just like a dentist might fill your filling. And then you can just every little bit can be used and it's not wasteful. So then I can just clean that back with a sander and all that later. So that is cleaning up, and then you just wipe down what you've been working on. And I have a little brush, which a really good little brush that I can clean up with. A little crumb brush, put that in the rubbish, put that away for next time. That's nice and clean. So that's about it for today. Oh, then there's the hands. In the hands you would just clean the same way as you did the other pieces, just with a fine scalpel like you do greenware. Always supporting the fingers underneath. And this will crack and break at this point just like greenware. It'll break away. Because if you're holding that and you're working on a curve that's working the opposite way, it will be like that bridge, and it will actually find the weakest point and break. And I used to say to the girls at class, when you're holding a piece of greenware or something like this, you can actually hear the sound of it before it breaks. Release the pressure off it. I can hear it. And you get a feeling for how hard you can push with your hand and how you hold it. And think of it as an egg. You know, you wouldn't grab an egg and squeeze it. You're just going to gently roll it in your hand and work on it with very gentle fingers. So that's a little bit about cleaning. And if you haven't taken enough out of here and you decide you want to do that a bit later, then when that's dried off, you can use those other files to widen it. But I'd prefer not to widen it at this point because you might take too much out. And then of course you've got your sanding things and all that come in later. So I hope that's been a really good insight this afternoon, and you're getting ready to start thinking about starting something. But some of you might have to wait for your Li-Qua-Che. I'm not sure whether there are shops in the United States that are stocking it, or whether you'll have to get it in from Canada, or what the story is. But there may be art shops that have already got it. They probably will have Fastmache, the sculpted mache, and they might have Li-Qua-Che, who knows. And I know that it comes in a smaller bucket than that as well, but for our bodies I think that would be too small, unless you're into miniatures or doing something really tiny. And if you were doing miniatures, you would have to pour it very, very thinly, and because you're going to have to add quite a bit of water, it's going to be very fragile and it's going to shrink an awful lot. So getting all that right would be very important. Probably a syringe would be the best way of getting it into your mould. So something like this is probably not going to work for something very small. I pour right down to the, not the petite moulds, but the millet moulds, the German little millet that has the tiny, tiny little fingers. I make that in Li-Qua-Che, and really great, because I always felt that the little bisque bodies for the millets were actually too small for some of the heads. They weren't in proportion. So if you've got a Li-Qua-Che body, you'll see that it's actually a wee bit bigger. And tomorrow I might get out my little long face chameau, which is actually, if you wait there, I'll go and get it. I won't be a minute. In 1989 I came to America, and Karen Badaji had a beautiful doll, the Cody, that she had made the pattern for, and I've got a big one out in my other cabinet, and because I loved it so much I reduced the size of it and I made this darling little one, which I think is just gorgeous. And that is the small millet body, the French one, and this little Marie is the little German one. Now those are tiny, tiny little fingers. So you can see they can be made in Li-Qua-Che. So I think they're gorgeous. They don't take up much room. So, dear little things. Okay, so good afternoon, and I hope you've enjoyed today.